Beautiful class.
Oh, thanks.
I really loved your film, Power Elite.
You've seen it.
That scene with the dogs around the garbage. How did you stage that?
Those dogs were just there, and I said, hey, shoot those dogs.
Beautiful.
Hey everybody, welcome to What the Flick. Ben Mankiewicz is at the TCM Festival, and Matt Atchity and Bibbs are in Seattle for Emerald City Con, I think. So it's just me and Christy, aging by the second, because that's what this movie's about. While We're Young, and the latest from Noah Baumbach, his follow-up to my favorite film of 2013, Frances Ha.
I love Frances Ha. This is perhaps not quite so generous as Frances Ha is. So Ben Stiller and Naomi Watts are a couple, a longtime married couple in their mid-40s living in New York. They are childless, which they say they are totally content with. And I think they have this great life. And then they realize that perhaps they weren't so happy after all when they meet a couple in their mid-20s, this like hipster parody couple played by Adam Driver and Amanda Seyfried. And they revolutionized their lives, and all of a sudden Ben Stiller's wearing a fedora, and Naomi Watts is taking hip-hop dance classes, and it's all fun and games with their new BFFs, but there are eventually some consequences. Take a look.
Why do you suddenly want to hang out with a couple of 25-year-olds?
We were just 25. I mean, we weren't, but, you know.
We're the boring couple with a baby. What have you guys been doing?
We met this interesting couple.
You came!
He's a young documentarian, and she makes ice cream.
How old are they?
25, 26.
26, 27.
I remember when this song was just considered bad. But it's working.
If I'm gonna be totally honest with myself, I don't think I'm ever gonna die. I know that's crazy.
It's crazy.
We've got this ayahuasca ceremony this weekend with Jamie and Darby.
What's an ayahuasca ceremony?
You drink this sludgy liquid and you hallucinate and vomit up your demons.
Okay. Well, we're just having a cookout and maybe playing charades.
I wish you'd look at me the way you look at Jamie and Darby. When we first met, you wooed me with romantic emails.
It wouldn't make sense for me to send you emails now. We're in the same room all the time.
For the first time in my life, I stopped thinking of myself as a child imitating an adult.
You feel that way too?
What is that, hoedown?
Hip-hop.
This movie is so true.
Oh, God.
So true, and so funny, and so sad.
Yeah, no, I remember when I first met somebody in their 20s who fetishized VHS. And I was like, okay, that's a thing.
Yeah, no, Noah Baumbach is so great at finding these perfect details and writing dialogue of these scenes that are so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And it's so vivid. Like, I want to know how much time he spent embedded with hipsters in Bushwick to get the authenticity here. Because it's everything from the songs these people listen to with no irony. They're
None.
like, wow, it's All Night Long by Lionel Richie or Eye of the Tiger or whatever.
Right.
And it just makes you feel so old.
There's a fun montage where, like, you'll see, you know, Ben Stiller is watching something on Apple TV and Adam Driver pops into VHS. Ben Stiller will be playing that dot game, you know, on his iPad, and then they're playing Risk, you know, old school, you know, analog Risk on a table.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. And what I admire is that they never use the word hipster until the very end of the movie.
They don't. It's implied.
But boy,
it's a particular breed.
They have a chicken in their apartment, so, you know, make of that what you will. Yeah, and I love I liked how it's, you know, there's sort of a pattern of youth will devour us movies. You know, in the late 60s, you had films like Skidoo or I Love You, Alice B. Toklas, where it was like the old squares and then the young hippies and that sort of culture clash. But, you know, but Baumbach very wisely starts this film with a quote from Ibsen's 1892 play, The Master Builder. So the whole thing about, like, being terrified of the next generation is just, you know, is going on forever.
And then the next thing he does is show his adorable little infant with this tinkly lullaby version of Golden Years, which is a nice sort of encapsulation of that contrast between these two kinds of lives.
Yeah. And so, but I like how it, as mocking as it is of the hipsters, it's also goofing on, like, when Ben Stiller finds out that he has arthritis.
You have arthritis in your knee.
Arthritis? Arthritis?
Yes. I usually just say it once.
The idea that there's not some other special non-old person arthritis, that he can have.
Yeah, no, it's mocking, but it's also very affectionate to both groups of people.
Exactly.
And it makes fun of them in very, very astute ways, but ultimately is sympathetic toward both sides.
Yeah.
It takes a turn in the third act that I think is kind of ill-advised and doesn't really work, and becomes a totally different and angrier and heavier film than it had been previously.
It gives Ben Stiller's character this speech at the end that I feel like it's sort of it's this movie's I Am John Galt speech, in that it tells you everything that we already know, everything that we've already picked up that the film was about the characters, about the generations, about whatever. And it felt like this weird moment of Boaumbach feeling like he had to go back and underline everything for us as though we'd missed it. And that kind of, that's a moment that really sort of took me out of the film, and it feels unnecessary because the commentary of the film is so smart and funny up till that point that we were perfectly on board and we knew what the movie was saying, and we didn't need the movie to stop and then tell us what it was saying.
And tonally it takes a shift there that doesn't quite work, because the rest of it is like breezy and funny and biting and buoyant, and then like all of a sudden when he makes these realizations, it just all of a sudden gets really dark. And I'm like, okay, where are we going with this? And how did we get here compared to where we have been and we enjoyed being? So I don't really like that. Yeah, there are a lot of documentary makers in this movie.
Yes.
I mean, Ben Stiller plays one, and what his movie is about is kind of hilarious. It's just so dense and ridiculous.
He can't even explain it, and he admits that it's boring, but he tries to pass that off as like intentional strategy.
And they make fun of him for like his pseudo-intellectualism in a way that's very funny. And Naomi Watts too, it makes documentaries, and Charles Grodin, I would love to have seen more of as her dad, as this like Maisels type figure who is brilliant. I like Adam Driver in this a lot because he sort of walks this fine line of, you don't know whether he's just being totally disingenuous or he actually is sincere and he means all the things he says, and it's not, for a long time you're not quite sure what to make of him.
Yeah, it's a great performance. I think Amanda Seyfried does a lot with a little. It's not a huge role, but I think she makes those moments really kind of pop.
Oh, also, Ad Rock. We should talk about Adam Horowitz.
Adam
Horowitz is like maybe the best thing in the whole movie.
As a new dad.
And it's just so funny to think of him like young and angry. I think of like listening to the entire Paul Revere is like, he's all young and angry and nasal, and like now he's a dad with a baby in a sling, and he's like kind of cute and graying, and he's really good in this.
Maria Ditzia, who plays his wife, she's on Orange is the New Black. She was in Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene.
She was in Louis. She has a great little 3-episode run in Louis.
Yes. She's really funny in this, and there is. And again, I think in the way that he's sort of, the Boaumbach is even-handed on both sort of couples in terms of both scolding them and loving them. Like, there's a great scene where Stiller and Watts arrive at their friend's apartment, not knowing that their friends are having a party that they weren't
not invited to. Right? And that part's really very insightful and true, too, about the moment when your friends are all having kids around you and you're not ready. That totally happened to me. And that happened to me in Brooklyn, where everyone was having kids and we weren't ready, and our friends all turned to these narcissistic assholes and you didn't relate anymore. And there does become a divide.
And then did you become one after you had a kid?
I tried really hard not to become an asshole. Although my kid's sitting outside right now playing Bad Piggies on my iPad. So I don't know, I just, it's observant about that particular kind of like inward-looking militant mommyism which exists in places like Brooklyn and like Los Angeles. So it's very insightful about that too. Yeah, I like this movie a lot. For a long time.
It's what it does wrong in no way outbalances all the things it does right.
Okay, so what's your number?
So I give it an 8.8. I'm a big fan.
I'm saying 7.8, so our average is an 8.3. It is at 81%. I think it might just be in limited release this weekend.
Possibly, but I'm sure going wider. Yeah. And it's A24.
They choose beautifully.
I'll tell you, I don't usually think about distributors when I think about movies, but they are on a really good roll for the last couple of years.
Between Spring Breakers and
well, I mean, last year I think half of my top 10 lists, like they released Locke, they released Under the Skin,
Under the Skin is great.
Obvious Child, Most Violent Year, like they got it going on.
Well. Okay, so thanks for choosing another great film for us to enjoy. Bye.